I am really in love with this first project, and what I used was this hanging light bulb, some batteries from the dollar store, and then the additional supplies were just some yarn and a hot glue gun, and I did use a little bit of spray paint. So I found this hanging LED light bulb. Of course, it was just $1. You open it up, you insert a couple of batteries in there, and then basically what you do is you pull the string and the light bulb lights up. And this light isn't super bright, but it's actually, I tested it at nighttime, it's like a perfect reading light. So if you were to have it by your bed or something, it's a great thing to just like pull on and basically read with, or whatever you want to do with it. And so what I started off by doing was just masking off the actual light bulb area, because originally I was going to put yarn around this area, but I wanted it to be able to have the batteries removed and put back in if they needed to be changed. So I ended up just using a 14 karat brass spray paint, which you guys all know my love for this spray paint. I think it looks so good. It really transforms anything and makes it look so expensive. So I sprayed the little battery slot piece and then also the other piece. And what I'm now doing is creating the cord for it. So I'm just creating a loop initially, as you can see on the screen here. And what I'm doing is a chain stitch. So I'm just putting my 2 fingers through and then pulling through the excess yarn. And the excess yarn is actually just attached to the entire like little ball of yarn, I guess you could say. And I'm just pulling it through and sort of creating this chain. And the reason I'm doing this is because I didn't just want to hang my LED light. I don't know why I'm calling it LED light, my light bulb, essentially just from a piece of yarn. I thought that was boring. I really wanted to create more of like a cording or a rope. So that's exactly what I'm doing here. And this is super easy. It took me like maybe 3 minutes to make a 2-foot long section of this. You can go really, really quick. After you get the hang of it, it goes really quickly. So I just pulled through and created this nice little chain stitch yarn piece, which is going to act as a cord. And when you get to the end, all you need to do is cut off and then put that tail end through the loop and pull it. And that actually just finishes off your chain stitch there. And this is going to be the cording that I'm going to be using for my hanging light. And then what I'm doing is just pulling off that little masking area with the tape and the paper towel, and this reveals the look. And then I just cut that black string because the black string was just kind of ugly. It wasn't my favorite thing. And I glued onto the black string the cord that we created. And I made sure just to leave a little bit of excess black string hanging out. That way you have a lot to glue on and there's a lot of like surface area for it to really stick and grasp onto. And lastly, just to finish off this project, I really wanted to wrap the corded section because I didn't like how the black string was showing. So I used a little bit of yarn and I just simply wrapped around this entire section, covering the cord that we created along with the black cord that was initially there. And you just have to do small sections of hot glue and just do small little wrappings each time. It's a little bit tedious, but once you finish it, it looks amazing. It looks very finished and polished. And honestly, this looks like it was made like at West Elm or created at Pottery Barn or something. It just looks really, really nice and pretty. And you can make these extremely long and hang them from the ceiling, whatever it may be. And you guys, honestly, this project probably cost me $1.50. So super affordable. All you have to do is pull a little cording and that turns your light on and you are good to go. This project is really fun, and I actually used miniature wooden tables I found at the craft section in the dollar store. How random is that? But that's probably why they were there. And I also used a hot glue gun, white paint, and a paintbrush. I laid a little bit of parchment paper down just so that my surface didn't get dirty, peeled off all those little barcodes on the bottom, and gave a nice white coating of paint to all of the little tables here. And I do want to mention that, you guys, the Target brand white paint is actually so good. Like, as you can see, it gives such a nice coat. Like, I did one coat on these entire little tables here, and it really gave them a full opaque white coat. So if you're looking for a good white paint, check out Target in their little craft section area. The white paint there is really, really nice. And this was kind of tedious. I did have to go in and go around all the legs and the underside and all that little stuff, but I thought it was so random how they had little wooden tables at the dollar store. But then I was thinking to myself, it's probably because nobody wants a little wooden table. But you know, I do. So I grabbed 4 of them and I'm gonna make it into a miniature shelf, which I'm actually gonna be using in my bathroom area to store a lot of my samples that I get from brands that are sent. So they're always such small little things that I throw into a drawer, but I'd love to have them out and be able to actually see them. So once you have your little miniature tables painted fully white, you can paint them whatever color you want. I'm just using a little bit of hot glue on all 4 legs and I'm going to be stacking them. This part, pretty self-explanatory if you watch what I'm doing, just adding a little bit of glue to the bottom and stacking them. You can use a stronger glue like E6000 or something if you plan to use a heavier item on this. And then you can also go in at the end with a little bit of white paint and just touch up any areas you might have missed, or just go over the glue spots if there are any, and that finishes off your shelf. Next up, we're just gonna upcycle some simple glass vessels from the dollar store. The dollar store always has a lot of glass items for, of course, $1. So I use those. I use a little bit of masking tape, Elmer's glue, paint, and a paintbrush as well. So what I started off by doing was taking this larger sort of like watercraft sort of a vessel, I guess you could say, and I used a little bit of masking tape to go around. And you can really mask off whatever you want, but this is just going to create a very clean line when we do our painting, and we're gonna be creating a frosted glass look using just Elmer's glue and paint. So what you need to do is get a small little disposable cup, put a good amount of Elmer's glue in there because this is going to act as your paint. And then I also added a couple drops of gold paint into this one, but you can add whatever you want. It could be gold paint, any color paint really, and the more paint you add, the more opaque it's gonna be. And another tip is that if you guys use food coloring, you actually get a fully frosted look, so that's another great tip. But I really wanted like a gold shimmer to the bottom of this, really to match my living room area. So what I did was just dip into the Elmer's glue, and what I suggest you guys when you do this is to do a very thin coat, as I'm doing here on this project. This vessel here actually turned out really, really nice, but the second one that I'm gonna show you that I did, it did turn out a little unexpected because I did add so much of the paint to it. I wanted to see what was gonna happen, but it ended up actually like running and then having a little bit of like drip marks, and it just wasn't as pretty. So I definitely suggest doing like a nice thin coat to wherever you wanna do it to. Once it's dry, it becomes fully frosted and it looks so pretty. It has a gold shimmer in there. And this is that second one I was mentioning. What I did was use a little bit more paint this time to make it a little bit more opaque, mixed with the Elmer's glue, of course, and I painted it onto this glass vessel here. I don't know why I keep saying vessel. It's like a container or a vase or something. And then I did a really thick layer on this one because I wanted to see how it was gonna turn out, but it ended up drying a little bit more splotchy, but honestly, it kind of gave it like a very like marled effect. And you're just gonna leave them to dry for about an hour, and that finishes off this project. This last one is the most creative for sure, and I used a slate tray, a little plate, 3 different mason jars, and a fidget spinner. Yes, a fidget spinner. And I also used a hot glue gun, some cardboard, and scissors, and you're gonna see exactly what I'm gonna do. But first off, I'm going to cut 6 little 1 by 1 inch squares from the cardboard, and these are actually going to be what I'm gonna call spacers, I guess you can call them, and you'll see what I'm gonna use them for in just a couple of seconds here. And what I did was cut 6 of those out. Then I went and removed the barcode from the bottom, and I glued the fidget spinner, just the center section, to the bottom of the plate. And I would honestly suggest you guys use like an E6000 or like a more strong bond adhesive, but I am just doing this for time's sake in the video. And then what I did was I used hot glue and I glued together all my squares. So I did this for 3 of them, so I had basically sandwich squares, and the sandwich squares are actually going to be going on the 3 sections of the spinner. And this is going to make it so that when we glue the slate tray on top, it actually sits higher than that center section. And if you do get any glue in the center, which I actually did, just let it dry, and then you can use your scissors to scrape it out. And then of course it spins really nicely. And what you're gonna need to do with this is you're going to then need to glue your slate tray or whatever it is that you wanna glue on top of it that's like a nice larger surface. Use a lot of glue, and because the cardboard is porous and because the slate tray is porous, it's actually stuck really, really nicely. You're just gonna stick that on top, plop it down, and you have a now revolving tray. I know, and you could put on top of it your little mason jars that you got, and inside of that you could actually store like makeup brushes, makeup, perfumes, Q-tips, little circular cotton rounds, whatever it may be, and it's a great tabletop accessory.